Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carry-on drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Views on the News. This is a show where we have opinionated people, the wise and the witty, who take apart the news that I reported in Global Atheist News only yesterday. And today we have back joining us from his jaunts around Europe, Bryce Cornell. Welcome, Bryce.
Thank you. Good to be back. Good to be here.
And we have Guy Otten from Manchester.
Hello again.
Thank you for coming. And Dread Higgs from the Great White North of Canada. So welcome, guys. I think we have an apology too, because David would be here, but he's got family matters to deal with. And I think Tercia is also otherwise occupied, but we all have lives, so that's perfectly all right. Okay, going into the news. I'm sure you are familiar with the name T.B. Joshua. It was the founder of one of the world's biggest Christian evangelical churches until he died in 2021. And his church, the Synagogue Church of All Nations, SCOAN for short, has been exposed by a BBC documentary for all sorts of atrocities. Just listen. He's committed physical violence and torture, personally, this is by him, including child abuse and people being whipped and chained. Numerous women say they were sexually assaulted by him, with a number claiming they were repeatedly raped for years. There were multiple allegations of forced abortions inside this church following the rapes. And one woman says she had 5 terminations. Then there's multiple first-hand accounts detailing how Joshua faked his miracle healings, which he screened on his televangelical, is that a word? Show, which was global. I mean, the numbers of followers that he had were in the millions. Unbelievable. The documentary that came out this week included one woman, a British woman, who was in the church for 12 years. She left Brighton, not far from me, in 2002, so 21 years ago, 23 years ago now, no, 22 years ago, I'll get it right, 22 years ago. And she was 21 when she left Brighton. She was at the university there, or one of the universities there, and she became his disciple. But she's now back in this country and she's spilling the beans. And I thoroughly recommend you to watch this documentary if you get a chance. It's on iPlayer, but it's bound to be ripped to YouTube as soon as anybody gets a chance. So, guys, give me your opinions of what that all means.
Well, it's rather similar to another thing that I posted to you, John, here just earlier this morning. Another case in the United States, this time going, heading up against Scientology. And that actor, Danny Masterson, who was from that TV show. Same stuff, where the leadership, of course, are all engaged in these heinous crimes. And the church is, of course, covering it all up for their own personal benefit. It's outrageous how rampant this stuff is.
Yeah. It is rampant, isn't it? And there's also the story about the building, which it was designed for so many stories, and he kept telling them to put extra stories on top.
That's right.
The result that it collapsed over a
Yes.
party of people who are having a meal in it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, what's interesting, one of the things that I've noticed about this, and I think it applies to quite a few other of these mega churches and evangelicals, is that they seem to have such a following that they have sort of ultimate unquestioned power. And I think there's a power issue here. They're like megalomaniacs. They begin to think that they are above the law, and they are unlimited right and authority to abuse and do whatever they like.
Yeah.
And they get found out. I would love to see some research as to what percentage of these people are found out, because it happens all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Isn't it though something you might actually expect, given that people hold a belief in an all-powerful tyrant already?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Isn't it just a natural extension of that failed epistemology?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I think one of the things about the clergyship is that it offers a certain level of insulation and protection against accusations and even suspicion by virtue of what it stands for. And I think that people get into these positions and realize that because of the influence they have with guiding people's spiritual hopes in whatever afterlife, the financial control that they have, the authority that they have in the body that they're in, they feel like they're invincible. And it's not unreasonable to suspect that some people go into the clergyship in these different religions because they are predators and they can get away with it.
Yeah. I think some of them are psychopaths.
Well, it actually turns into a grist mill, right? Because you may go in with good intentions or you may go in with bad intentions, but once you're through the mill, you're all the same, right? It's just you can't sustain a position in it unless you're part of the game. Have you guys seen that movie, The Three Billboards in something, Missouri? It was a really good movie that came out a couple years ago. Won an Oscar, I think.
The Three Billboards.
There's one conversation. The lead actress there, she has a conversation with a priest in her home, and equating the Catholic Church and priesthood to the Bloods and the Crips, the gangs in New York. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a good short spot, but it really tells the story of how, once you get in the gang, you're part of the gang.
Yeah, don't get in. That's my advice. Yeah,
exactly.
So people in, I think the government, or certainly some of the politicians in, this is in Nigeria, of course, have been defending TB Joshua. That they say that these are lies that people are putting out by the BBC, and despite the fact that during their investigations, one of the camera crew was fired at by the temple guards, or whatever they called themselves, at his large church.
Yeah. Guy mentioned
the very same thing is happening with Scientology, right? They're just deny.
Guy mentioned a little while ago about how these people think that they're above the law, but in many cases that turns out to be the case, at least in practice. They're treated as though they are, not by just the members of the congregation or themselves, but outside agencies as well. They're inclined not to believe that these people could be predatory because of their role, and so they kind of are above the law in most cases, it seems. Like.
Yes. Well, there you go. I think it's horrifying, and I'm glad he's dead, to be honest. I mean, I don't say that about many people, but the world is well rid of him.
Yes.
I am happy that he's dead too, and that's a phrase that I am perfectly comfortable saying about a lot of people. There's this taboo around saying that you shouldn't wish death on anybody, and I think that's BS. There are certain people who the world would clearly be better off if they were dead, and they should be dead. That doesn't mean that I'm advocating people go out to make that happen, But
No.
you know, if they happen to have cancer or whatever kills them, I can celebrate that. You know, it's not a shame. It's not anything shameful to celebrate the death of horrible people.
Especially
I
as
should also
one
like to point out
presumes.
that we're
Sorry, I was going to say, especially as one presumes it's their God who gave them the cancer.
yes, yeah. But
Fred.
you know, when people say you shouldn't wish somebody dead, is implying that you have a power that can help push that along, which I don't believe in, of course. So, from my point of view, it doesn't matter a whit whether I wish someone dead or not. It doesn't have any impact on the universe.
No, we don't have those powers, and thank heaven. So, take a look at social media, which has really upturned society, culture, because it's such a new and undeveloped medium. And in this country, in the UK, the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit, a police unit, reports that there has been a 12-fold increase in hateful social media content. And it's mostly youngsters, teenagers. And it's sparked by Hamas's attack on Israel back on October the 7th. And the subsequent Israeli launch of airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. Apparently, the officers of this unit say they are being referred to mainly anti-Semitic content being posted and shared by young Britons who have not been on their radar before. And we've seen in many of the cities of this country quite a lot of support for Palestine protests, haven't we, Guy?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I mean, I support Palestine in the sense that I want to see them free of the violence and the terrorism that they're living under. I want to see them flourish in peace alongside Israel. I don't think that's a problem. But what is the problem is that the pro-Palestinian movement has attracted anti-Semitic bigoted elements.
Yes.
And that's the worry.
Yes. Yes. And actually today I see in the news that there was a pro-Israel gathering. I'm not going to call it a protest, an assembly in Trafalgar Square.
Where it's 100 days.
Yes, to celebrate, to commemorate. Celebrate's the wrong word. Yes.
It's also a Holocaust Memorial Day.
Yes,
I think today, or is it tomorrow? And I've attended earlier today a Holocaust Memorial kind of event.
Yes.
I think it's important not to conflate pro-Palestinian sentiment with anti-Semitism. And I think it's a very easy trap to fall into.
Absolutely.
The media does its fair share to kind of feed that narrative as well, which is unfortunate. Most people who are at these pro-Palestinian rallies are not anti-Semitic any more than most of the people who are at the pro-Jewish rallies are Islamophobic. You know, it's just that you do have these Islamophobic and anti-Semitic elements that try to co-opt to usurp the movement and claim it as their own, but they don't in any way represent. It's kind of like when they had the Black Lives Matter protests in my country in the last few years, and people were saying, well, it's Antifa, you know, it's actually Black Lives. It's actually just people who think that Black Lives Matter. And then Antifa shows up at a couple of them and tries to, destroy what it's about. But it's really important not to conflate that, because that has the damaging effect of minimizing the attention of the other atrocity, which is going on right now, which is the destruction of Gaza.
In this particular case, it's youngsters who, as we all know, are not necessarily well informed about the history of such goings on, and who are also very black and white. They don't get into nuance. They like things to be nice and simple and either or. And this is what the counterterrorism, the head of counterterror policing, is worried about. He says his team is tasked with tackling the most extreme content. And he says there's a failure by social media companies to deal with the overall climate of hate created by their algorithms.
Yes, that is not surprising, Guy.
I just wanted to be, because you brought up a term that I have trouble with, Islamophobia. I don't believe it exists. I don't think it's a thing. It would be like saying there's Christianophobia or Buddhisophobia. It's actually ridiculous to think that just because you don't agree with a religious perspective that you're phobic of it. It doesn't work, and certainly it's it's a term that's flouted by Muslims, not by people who don't believe in it. It's it doesn't work for me. I don't know if maybe you guys have a different perspective on it, or if you could.
I mean, obviously, I do.
That's weight to it, but Islamophobia, from my point of view, would be like saying I'm a Christian phobia or something.
I mean, I think that some of this is probably related to the cultural perspective of what happens in our country. I know I can only speak for America and what I tend to see here. I think right-wing evangelism and the popularity of it in the United States, if you listen to a lot of the way that they speak about Islam, specifically Islam, it's as if it's this like demonic, religious movement that is likely to lead people to extremism. They absolutely do fear it, and they treat Muslims as though they are beneath them morally, spiritually, and in all kinds of other ways. And they have ideas. When Barack Obama was elected president of this country, there was it was very popular to try to characterize him as a Muslim. And then that's it, as if that was the evil thing that should prevent him from being the president. No other context besides the fact that, well, he might be a Muslim. I don't know what to call that other than Islamophobia, And by the way, he's not. There was just a matter of convenience, but it was ignorance.
Well,
that he was the first black president.
Wouldn't it be just as legitimate to say it's otherism? It's the other team, and whoever's a part of the other team is not a part of my team. And it doesn't matter. You just
it's all tribalism.
Exactly. I mean, again, it's the same with Judaism. If you're a hard right Christian, man, the Jews killed your God, right? You hate them all equally, right?
But the difference is the Christians really quickly in my country pretend to be pro-Israel and pro-Jewish because that's a part of their theology. The coming of the end in Christianity all relates to what happens in Israel. But it does not relate to what happens with Islam anywhere in the world.
No.
So they treat that differently.
At the end of the day, they're all failed epistemologies. So I just like them all equally.
Yes, and the Bible, of course, is shared. The Old Testament between,
of course, Abrahamic religions, right? That's what they are.
So I want to propose the word simplicism. I'm coining it right now because it focuses on polarity, not nuance. And I blame Hollywood a bit for this because back in the early days of movie making, the bad guy wore a black hat and the good guy wore a white one.
Right.
And so it gave a sort of context to that idea that you're either a goodie or a baddie. And this is nonsense.
And what was the term you came up with? Or is there something come up?
Simplicism.
Oh, or how about dichoticism?
Yeah, yeah. But I wanted to go for the idea of simplicity, you see.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, because it's absolutely not nuanced, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on, another part of the world entirely, the Philippines. Okay. The capital, Manila, saw a massive crowd of Catholic worshippers marching in a procession that paraded a centuries-old black statue of Jesus. Now, this apparently is a major annual Catholic event in Asia, but it was cancelled during the coronavirus pandemic. And last year, after the pandemic restrictions were actually eased, they didn't parade the statue because they were trying to discourage large crowds. But it took place on Tuesday this year, and it took 15 hours for this procession to process. And at one point, there were more than 2 million devotees. Now, this provided quite a policing headache, especially as on December the 3rd, there was a bombing that killed 4 people and wounded dozens of Catholics attending Mass at a university in southern Philippines. And the new President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., you may recognize the name,
Of course.
he blamed foreign terrorists for the attack and sparked this sort of security alarm. So there you go. That's what they've been up to in the Philippines.
I wonder if he's taken on his mother's shoe fetish.
Any idea as to motivation for the attack? Was that spoken about at all?
Well,
even speculation.
All we know is the label that he gave to it.
Right. So he's
whether,
writing the narrative.
Yeah. Whether there is any more information or not, it hasn't reached the desk of Global Atheist News, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Because it would be very tempting to just go for the low-hanging fruit and say, but for the existence of religion, this would never have happened. But we don't know that it was religiously motivated, so you can't really say that.
I say that every day. I mean, or in my view, since there's no evidence for any God, all religions are fallacious.
Yeah, I think we all probably would agree to that. But I mean, I just meant in terms of inspiring a specific act of violence or terror. Like I don't think we could say that this is religiously motivated or there's evidence.
All we know is that the wounded and dead were Catholics. That's all we know. Yeah.
They do have an Islamic insurgency in some parts of the Philippines.
They do, yes. And they were actually attending Mass. So whoever set off the bomb possibly was targeting Catholics. He knew where they were going to be. Okay, so coming to the UK, we've had a scandal going on here about the post office, because I don't know if you know, the post office is a government organization, and it used to be called the Royal Post Office, and it has sub-postmasters that operate little businesses all over the country. There's thousands of them in even the smallest villages, and they were provided back in I think about 1998, somewhere 30 years ago. They were provided with a new accounting and general administration computer software system called Horizon. It was provided by Fujitsu. Fujitsu. Anyway, this accounting system turned out to be faulty, and it made a lot of these post office branch managers appear to have fiddled the books and made off with quite a lot of the money that was going over their counter. Many of them were prosecuted. 700 odd were prosecuted. You would have thought they would have, when the number got that big,
you think a red flag goes up somewhere.
You would have done, yes. Never mind, 700 were prosecuted, and some were sent to prison following conviction for false accounting and theft. Many were financially ruined, and a few committed suicide. Now,
that seems like really flimsy evidence to convict people. I mean, did they even like look into their bank records to see if they had transactions that equated to the amount of money that was like?
Yeah,
they
did.
Done that.
They did, but none of them had the money. So that money, that many of them repaid huge amounts of money.
Yes,
but anyway,
from their own. From their own resources.
It was like the satanic panic, right? You know,
yes,
it's all, it runs into a mob mentality, and all of a sudden you don't need evidence anymore. You just need someone that's.
Well, I mean, it went on for many, many years under many different leaders in the post office and many different government ministers.
And
it's
anyway,
recently, you're coming to the point here, John.
I am, yes. It's recently been the subject of a documentary expose. But the point is that in charge of the post office, and this was the worst miscarriage of justice within living memory and probably grandfather's memory as well in this country. But the boss at the time was a woman called Paula Venables. And it's just been revealed that she is an ordained Anglican priest, and she was interviewed for the role of the Bishop of London, and that would be the third most senior post in the Church of England. And the Archbishop of Canterbury was supporting her application for this role. She wasn't actually appointed from a final shortlist of 3, but she had been awarded a CBE, which she is now, under pressure from public feelings. She has now handed back. But the point I'm making, well, the point I'm offering you to debate is the juxtaposition between being a Christian priest and being running this business and denying the innocence of these sub-postmasters, supporting their prosecution, 700 of them, more than 700. So what's going on there in her mind? Has she got different compartments?
Well, I mean, one of the things about the Church of England that they do quite well, I think, and it's one way that they've probably struggled to exist and successfully, is that when they find an intelligent and bright and devoted member of their congregation, they suggest that they go in for training with a view to becoming a lay priest. And I think that's what's happened to her. And my sister has done exactly the same. She's a lay, not quite a priest. She's the one below a priest in an Anglican church. And so I think that's the background there. And then they carry on with their normal job, but they then help out in their parishes. So that's the background. But I mean, obviously, your point is that she has conducted herself apparently, and this is the allegation, that she knew perfectly well,
yes,
that the Horizon system was faulty, and yet she, continued to support the prosecutions.
Yes. In fact, it was introduced. The Horizon software was introduced during Tony Blair's reign as the Prime Minister, and it's also been revealed today that he was in possession of information that pointed out that it was faulty software, going right back to then, 1998, was it? Yeah.
I mean, this is the problem when government puts out contracts to provide these amazing sort of software systems. What happens is that the deal is bad news, because the company takes all the profit, but the risk of things going wrong seems to end up with the taxpayer.
Yes,
and I think it's just a racket. I think that these things should be done in-house by government computer experts.
They used to be
right and not pay themselves massive profits And bonuses. The other annoying thing here is that the head of the post office and Fujitsu have gone away with lots and lots of money and bonuses and God knows what else.
Yes.
Yeah.
While the poor postmasters at the coalface have been made bankrupt, many of them. It's outrageous.
Well, and another problem too is when you farm this stuff out to private business, like governments farming these contracts out to private business, they become beholden to those business interests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it becomes tougher and tougher to extricate yourself from those relationships at the expense of the trust of the populace in your governance, right?
Yes. Because the civil service, the government service has lost those skills.
Yes. Well, Fujitsu have been commissioned to do other softwares for our government, including some in the military field.
God help the military then.
So there is incompetence and there is corruption, and either one could be used to explain this type of failure. I'm curious, Guy, I think you mentioned a couple of moments ago that there was evidence, or at least the accusation, that this woman knew that the software was faulty.
I think this is the accusation. There is a public inquiry going on at the moment, actually. And we will no doubt find out an answer when the public inquiry provides its report. But certainly there is apparently some evidence that she might have known, and we don't know for certain yet. But she has felt sufficiently ashamed of herself to hand back a CBE, which is a commander of the British Empire. That's another discussion we've got to have about the crazy imperial honor system that we've got. But she's handed that. The CBE is quite a senior honor. It is,
yes.
See, I was going to say, if that's not the case, if it turns out that she didn't know and it was just incompetence, to me that would be par for the course as well, because you said she was trying to be an Anglican priest, right? So clearly she has a methodology of using faith instead of evidence anyway.
Well, now that is a good point, Bryce.
So it doesn't surprise me that she would convict these people based on faith and not any evidence.
That's right. Well,
have you guys heard of
throughout the time, people have relied on Horizon and the post office saying, "Oh yes, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it." They lied. They knew that there was something wrong with it. And then whenever they interviewed, the investigators interviewed post office managers, they said, "You're the only person this is happening to, so you're clearly stealing the money." When they knew perfectly well that hundreds of postmasters were having this problem.
Whatever her modus operandi was, she wasn't applying what would Jesus do, was she?
Well, are you familiar with Hanlon's razor? Hanlon's razor says, never attribute to conspiracy or malice what can be more easily explained by incompetence or stupidity.
That is a good Hanlon's razor.
Hanlon's
razor. I like it.
I have heard that before. I didn't know it was called that, but that's what made me kind of ponder the question in the first place, because
I know of this principle as the cock-up theory is usually right. That's the one I've
So staying with the UK, apparently there has been 3 new bills introduced into the House of Lords, and the anti-choice, or what Americans would call pro-life groups, are delighted because
anti-choice, by the way, just throw that out there.
Okay, because these bills, one of them is called fetal sentience, another one is called gestational time limit reduction, that means abortion, and another one is called early medical home abortion review. So all of them are attempting to follow the Roe v. Wade wave that's gone through America, and the anti-choice groups are delighted. Unfortunately, our government has not been very good on abortion rights. There's been a couple of instances of the loss of a motion in Parliament when one of them was a motion to keep telemedical home abortion provisions that were introduced during the pandemic. You remember during the pandemic, you couldn't go out and say, "Dear doctor, I'm pregnant and I don't want it." You had to do it on the internet, telemedical. Okay. So that worked fine during the pandemic, but and the government, the ministers wanted to keep it, wanted to make it, permanent, but they lost that vote. And another vote they lost was an attempt to pass legislation on safe access zones. Very often when women are attending an abortion clinic or, a sexual health clinic, they have to barge through a protest of people with their signs. Exactly. Yes. So we were attempting to legislate for safe access for these women, but they lost that bill as well. And there's also, believe this or not, worrying signs that the police are increasingly using an 1861 Victorian criminal law on abortion, which still is on the statute book, to investigate women who've had miscarriages or who are suspected of having had terminations outside the framework of the 1967 Abortion Act. In the last 12 months, 7 women have faced prosecution and trial under this 1861 Offences Against the Person Act. Now that's 7 in the last 12 months, and it compares to 3 convictions between 1862 and 2022.
Yeah, it does suggest that the police are being infiltrated by these, anti-abortion people.
I've said this before on other platforms, is that, unfortunately, it's the anti-abortionists who have framed this struggle as pro-choice and pro-life, when in fact it's pro-autonomy and pro-ideology. And if we try to get people to think about it in those terms rather than the ones that the anti-abortionists have selected, we might get a little more gravitas, right? Just a thought.
I think it's clear. I don't know what the statistics are in the UK, but I suspect they're not too dissimilar from what they are in the US as far as the general populace, how they feel about abortion rights. In the United States, we have a situation where the majority of Americans, I think it's between 70 and 80%, favor abortion access, favor women's right to choose. And don't quote me on the numbers because I don't have the latest stats, but it is a clear majority. And we have a government which is systematically removing, we have state governments which are systematically eliminating those rights, and a failure of the federal government to protect those rights. And we also have a Supreme Court of the United States that is not representing the will of the American people. We've got basically 6 people who are deciding the fates of 320 million people, the majority of which want the opposite of what these 6 people think is right. And that's a damn shame. But is that similar to what might be happening in the UK right now?
Fortunately not. We are far less polarized than you are on this issue and on many issues, and much more reasonable. But what I regret is, if you look at the people who were recently awarded honors by the government, knighthoods and damehoods and these CBEs, OBEs, MBEs, there's almost no scientists in there.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, our honor system is in a terrible state of disrepute, not just because it refers to Order of the British Empire, for God's sakes, but also because these honors are handed out in a corrupt fashion. Not all of them, but some of them, especially
Yes.
people end up in the House of Lords,
Yes.
you know, because they've donated to the Tories or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And there's one woman who's in the House of Lords that, you know, one wonders whether she just slept with Boris Johnson or something. You know, this is the kind of suspicion one has.
Yes. Actually, that one didn't get a knighthood. Didn't get a peerage. That one, who I think you're referring to, she's quite cross and is spilling the beans now because she wasn't appointed to the House.
Oh yes, so that's another one.
Oh right, yes.
Because she wasn't. That's right. She wasn't made a peer when she thought she'd been promised it.
Yes.
Oh, for goodness sake! And then she went into a huff.
Yes, yes. But you're right. It is utterly corrupt. Yes, and shameful that we have this in this country in this year.
Which is considered more prestigious, the knighthood or winning a Nobel Peace Prize in the UK? Which one would be considered?
Nobel Peace Prize, in my opinion.
Yes, it depends who you talk to. There are people who think that the old nobility system has value, but not so many now as there was once, fortunately. Yeah. Okay, so staying with the UK, faith schools. Now, this is something else that Tony Blair is responsible for. He introduced, as he didn't want to spend any more money on state education than he could, than he needed to, he introduced academies in which a secondary school, well, actually it started out as secondary, but now it's primary too, is entitled to go into partnership with other organizations who can buy in, hand over some money to the state school, but that gives them power to control certain aspects of it, like the syllabus and the entry criteria. And so these things are called, most of them are run by churches, and they're called faith schools. And they are, unfortunately, socially selective. They admit fewer students that are eligible for free school meals. This is one way in which we judge the quality, if you like. No, that's the wrong word, of admissions. The more vulnerable people are enabled to have their children get free meals, but the faith schools don't want them. They want children of rich parents, you see. So they admit fewer students that are eligible for free school meals than they should, given their catchment area. And it's worse if you look at the top performing faith schools. So 19 of the 20 most socially selective schools in England have a religious character. And Catholic schools are the least representative of the population they provide for.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
That
same in
terminology.
Canada. It's the same in Canada.
You know, that terminology, faith school, that as you kept saying it over and over again, and I'm just thinking, wow, what a great oxymoron. You know, like that's right up there with deafening silence and civil war. You know, faith is the
oxymoron.
Faith is the suspension of skepticism, and it's defined in the dictionary as complete trust or confidence in something.
Yes,
a school is an institution for education. So faith school doesn't work for me. You know, it shouldn't really work for anybody.
Quite right.
If Tony Blair or Parliament had any sense when they were doing this, even if they wanted to, you know, they didn't want to spend the money for schools, fine. They could have written it in such a way to ensure the requirement for secularism.
Yes.
You know, just by having that caveat or that piece of language, that clause in the bill, you know, the organization must adhere to secular education protocols. And then that would have prevented this problem potentially.
Absolutely. But at the time, Tony Blair was deceiving us. He was keeping his religion quiet. And in fact, his chief advisor,
Alistair Campbell.
Alistair Campbell, thank you.
Yep.
He when they were arranging interviews, he said, "We don't do religion," and that was a taboo subject that the journalists weren't allowed to question about. Subsequently, of course, when Tony Blair ceased to be Prime Minister, he came out and changed from Anglican to Catholic.
Yeah.
But he was keeping all of that aspect of himself secret right up until
Alistair
after.
Campbell. Alistair Campbell was a senior advisor, and he was an atheist, still
Yes.
is, I think. And I think he held back a bit, on Tony Blair. But anyway,
Yes.
I mean, this is an ongoing scandal. The fact that we have faith schools in this country.
Yes.
And hopefully we can build up the atheist and humanist movement and secularist movement to the point where we can, get the law changed and get them abolished.
Yes.
I mean, the reality is that some of them are not as bad as others. And I mean, I'm going to speak at a RE day in a school in Rochdale next month, which is a state school. It's a sort of, I think it's nominally a faith of an Anglican faith school, but 80% of the kids are Muslims. So, but they have a very progressive religious education program where they introduce the kids to a wide range of different religions, so that they understand what they're all about, including humanism, which I will be talking about. I think that's brilliant.
Good for you, Guy.
Keep up the good work, and don't forget Pastafarianism too.
Yes, please.
Finally, guys, I've got some good news for you. I think you'll like this. Maltese Archbishop Charles Scicluna, who has the ear of the Pope. He's a papal ally and an influential prelate at the Vatican. And he says the Catholic Church should reconsider its ban on married priests. If it were up to me, I would revise the requirement that priests have to be celibate, he said. How about that?
Well,
I think. Go ahead, Guy.
Go on, Dred.
Just it's interesting that all advancements in the church come after the society in which they live and exist have changed. It's never them leading the charge on change. It's them taking up the rear.
I mean,
literally in some cases.
I mean, in the case of the Catholic Church, they're so desperate for priests that they're going to be forced to do this.
Sure.
And certainly in the Manchester area, where we cannot get priests to come in to the psychiatric units to minister to their own flock.
Yes.
Because there just aren't any available.
Yes. Well, he mentions that, this Archbishop, and he says we should not, according to Scicluna, the decision on married priests should not be motivated solely by the recruitment crisis plaguing the Catholic Church in some areas. Becoming a priest should not be a question. Becoming a priest should be a question of faith. And the rules should not be changed just to try to solve a lack of priests. But, and this is the crux, why should we lose a young man who would have made a fine priest just because he wanted to get married?
Mm-hmm.
And we did lose good priests just because they chose marriage, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Go on. Well, I was going to say, I have a controversial opinion about this. So it starts with, I agree that the Catholic Church should change the rules so that priests can be married. But the reason I think that they should has nothing to do with recruitment or any of that stuff that they were talking about. My motivation for doing that would be to curb or curtail the propensity for sex abuse in the Catholic Church.
Well, yeah.
And I want to be careful to make sure that people aren't misunderstanding this for me to be suggesting that the reason pedophilia and child sex abuse has been prominent in the Catholic clergy is because they're not allowed to marry. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am suggesting is that this is an organization. We kind of started off talking about it too, when we got into the Nigeria pastor.
Yes.
This is a type of work that invites people who may have sexual problems, because it serves as a natural hindrance or shield or level of protection to keep them from acting on those types of things, and so I can see very easily people who have the predisposition for pedophilia being possibly attracted to becoming a clergy, to kind of keep their mind off of that and to get right with God and to never act on it. And many of them probably invariably fail, I do think that marriage, though, is another avenue that would help them do that. This isn't to say that they would not be pedophiles anymore. They still would be, but they probably would be less likely to act on it.
Sure. Yeah. So the thing is that celibacy is likely to produce frustration, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just
they're
about
going to
not
act out.
marrying, it's about not having sex.
Right. That's really, but they're never going to do that. They're never going to be like, oh, sex, well,
I mean, I think of Father Ted, and I can't think. Did you see the Father Ted programs, Dread and Bright? Oh, you missed amazing things.
Let's see
They
them.
were so good, so funny.
I'll check it out on YouTube.
Yeah,
yes, please. You won't be sorry.
And they were written largely by a guy called Graham Linehan. Who was cancelled because he had gender critical views.
Yes.
And but he's kind of people are rediscovering him now.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Father Ted.
Yeah. He's a patron of the NSS, John.
Is he?
I think he might be another possible one for Atheism UK.
Good idea. Yeah. I'm a fan. Yeah. I'd love to get him on a chat show too. Graham Linehan. Yeah.
Graham Linehan, yeah.
And
he's in that sort of stage where he's looking for allies, I think.
Yes. I did see a little item documentary on him where he was going to do stand-up.
That's it. Yeah,
he hasn't done for 20 years or so. And he was sort of dropped in it when he didn't want to go on stage, but the host hadn't been told, and he introduced him, and he had to perform. Yeah, guys, you've been wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm going to call the show off now because we've done longer than the often goldfish attention span viewer can stomach.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It's good to be here.
Nice to see you again, Bryce. Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you guys next
Say
time.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Amen.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carrying drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys?